Welcome to Dispatch, the weekly show designed to keep you on track as you build and operate your layout. I'm Roy Smith, your dispatcher. Thank you for joining me tonight. On tonight's show, your layout photos, the question of the week, your comments, and a big shout out. But be sure to stick around all the way to the very end because I have an added bonus for you, and there's no extra charge for the added bonus. The studio audience has already gathered, and so let me ask them a question. All right, everybody calm down. Tonight I have some good news and some bad news. Which do you want first, the good news or the bad news?
Give us the bad news first.
Okay. There is no bad news. Sorry about that. Well, I'll just have to give you the good news then. On Sunday, Leonore and I went to Albrook Mall. This is the largest shopping mall in Central America. It takes only about 10 minutes to drive to the mall from my house. Well, we went to an electronics store there and bought this Canon M50 camera because the YouTube gurus say it's a great choice for making videos. This is the first photo taken with the camera. The nice young salesman at the store took the photo. I told him I wanted the camera so that I could improve the quality of my YouTube videos. He was fascinated when I told him about my YouTube channel, this channel that you are now watching, and he subscribed to the channel right then and there on the spot. Well, I'm still mystified by the camera and how to use it, but at least I've been able to test it here at home by taking this video of my layout. Eventually, I will use it to make my videos for this channel instead of my iPhone, which I have been using. Stay with me on this though, because I'm not the fastest model railroader in the train room. Now let's begin tonight's show with your layout photos. First though, let me interject a brief commercial. If you're new here, I want you to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. That way we can share this amazing hobby of model railroading together. Now then, on with your layout photos. Each week I invite you to post photos of your layout on a Facebook page called the N-Scale Union Pacific Evanston Subdivision Group. And each week many of you do just that. Then I bring your photos over here to Dispatch to share them with everybody during the show. So once again, I have a bunch of layout photos to share with you. And here they are. Remember, your photos are a great source of inspiration both for others thinking about getting into the hobby and for those of us already in the hobby. So when the show ends, I want you to go over to the Facebook group, join the group, and post a photo of your layout there because we want to see what you're doing on your layout. I will put a link down below that will take you to the group. When you see this photo of Echo Canyon on my layout, you'll know you're at the right place. Next up on the show, the question of the week. The question for tonight's show was suggested by Gary Leach in last week's episode of Dispatch. Here's the question Gary suggested. Is your layout DC or DCC or a combination of the two? And if it is DCC, which system do you use to power your layout? For example, NCE, Digitrax, or some other system. The purpose of this question is to help newcomers to the hobby select a system to run their layouts because there are many choices and it can be a difficult decision to make. Well, a whole bunch of you responded to Gary's question and I've compiled your answers in this chart. The first chart indicates that slightly more than half of you who responded to the question power your layout with DCC systems. However, many of you continue to use DC systems as well, and quite a few of you operate your layouts with a combination of DC and DCC. Now, as you probably know, DC stands for direct current. For decades, this was the most common way to run trains. In this system, you control blocks of track, and all of the locomotives on a given block of track respond to the commands of the throttle at the same time and in the same way. I powered a layout I built back in the mid-1980s with DC because if DCC existed back then, I certainly was not aware of it. In DCC, you control individual locomotives rather than blocks of track. DCC stands for Digital Command Control. Each locomotive responds to throttle commands independently of the others thanks to decoders installed in each locomotive. Well, I left the hobby in the 1980s but came back to it almost 30 years later in 2014. By now I had heard of DCC, and from the get-go I decided to use DCC on my new layout. I discovered that with DCC I didn't need a huge control panel with lots of toggle switches like I had on my layout back in the 80s, and I didn't need to break up my track into a bunch of separate electrical blocks. I discovered that wiring the layout for DCC was actually simpler than DC. I discovered that I could control my entire layout with a simple handheld throttle, and I discovered that I could concentrate on my trains rather than on blocks of track. So I decided to power my layout with some DCC system, but which one? That was a really hard decision to make. Eventually, I decided to go with the NCE Power Cab because it seemed to be easier to understand, and friends recommended it. As the second chart indicates, slightly more than half of you who run your layouts with DCC said you use an NCE system, followed closely by those of you who use a Digitrack system. But the difference in the number of users of each system is negligible. To me, this small difference means that neither system is better than the other. Instead, it means that the system you choose is a matter of personal preference. It's now 5 years later and I'm still using my NCE Power Cab, but I do plan to go wireless as soon as I can because the cord keeps getting tangled up. Now the question for the coming week. The question for the coming week was suggested by Trevor Hawkins. Here's Trevor's question. Which railroad do you model? For example, the Union Pacific, the BNSF, the Norfolk Southern, some other railroad, or some combination of railroads. And why did you pick the particular railroad to model? Be sure to post your response to this question in the comments section down below, and then I will tally up your responses and present the results in next week's edition of Dispatch. Remember, the question for the coming week is, which railroad do you model and why? And now it's time for your comments. On Saturday, I uploaded a video called A Second Visit to Todd Treaster's Awesome N-Scale Layout. In it, I share my visit to Todds Layout during my recent trip to central Pennsylvania, and I refer to Todds Layout as the single most awesome N-Scale layout I have ever seen. Let's take a look at a clip from that video. Today we are going to visit the most amazing privately owned N-Scale layout that I have ever seen, and it's starting right now. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. As you probably know, I recently returned from a trip to central Pennsylvania where I visited a number of club and home layouts. Todd Treaster's awesome N-Scale layout was one of them. I visited Todd and his layout for the first time back in November 2017. I'll put a link down below that will take you to a video about that first visit. Be sure to go to that video when this one finishes. Todd's layout is simply the most amazing, privately owned N-scale layout I have ever seen, and I want you to see it too. Come along then, let me show you his layout. This is Todd. He's a very gracious host, always happy to share his time and knowledge with you. If you ever have a chance to visit him and see his layout, be sure you do. Let's begin our tour of Todds Layout here at the city of Pittsburgh. From here, we'll work our way around this immense layout. The layout is based on Conrail's Pittsburgh division, stretching from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to Enola Yard near Harrisburg. It fills the basement in Todd's beautiful home in a space measuring 35 feet by 38 feet. He began to build it in 2004. There were tons of comments in response to this video. I would love to share all of them with you because you all had such nice things to say about Todd's layout. But there's time to share only a couple of them with you. Chris Mitchell wrote, "Wow isn't even close enough. What a truly amazing layout, Roy. I would love to see it someday." Chris, wow is the one word that popped up most often in everyone's comments. Spectacular, amazing, and awesome were a few of the other words used to describe Todd's layout. Todd's layout left me speechless when I saw it for the first time back in November 2017. I was so overwhelmed that I could hardly talk. It seems like it's hard to find an adjective in the English language that adequately describes Todd's layout. Todd Webster wrote, "I have had the pleasure of visiting Todd Treaster's layout. He was gracious enough to run an Amtrak train for me because he knew of my love for Amtrak. He is a very pleasant and accommodating man. His love for the hobby is incredible. As I recall, he does not use DCC on his layout." Frank, you're absolutely right. Todd is very pleasant and accommodating, as you say, and as always willing to share his vast knowledge of railroading and model railroading with you. No, he still runs his layout on DC. It's pretty hard to imagine converting that many locomotives to DCC. Besides, his layout already runs flawlessly on DC. And Death Letter Blues 44 wrote, "Excellent job, Roy. I have always wanted to see a tour of this entire layout, and your explanations helped make sense of what I was watching." Thank you, my friend. It was a pleasure to share Todd's layout with you. It also was a pleasure to run Todd's big blow turbine all the way around his immense layout and to film it as I did this. If you ever have a chance to visit Todd's layout, be sure you do. And now here's what I want all of you to do. I want you to go watch the video if you haven't seen it yet. I will put a link down below that will take you directly to the video. Believe me, Todd's layout will amaze you. Then, after watching the video, I want you to share it on your social media. It's already had well over 8,000 views since I uploaded it 3 days ago. But let's make it go really viral on the internet. If it does go viral, I will keep you posted on the statistics. It will be fun to watch the video blow up on the internet. And now it's time for tonight's big shout out. Our shout out tonight goes to Tim Garland and his Seaboard Central layout. The Seaboard Central Railroad is an around-the-room HO scale layout based on a fictional regional railroad linking Birmingham, Alabama to Savannah, Georgia. The layout is a modern-era layout based or focused primarily on Griffin, Georgia. It occupies a space that measures nearly 12 feet by 23 feet. I want to share some short clips from Tim's channel with you. In these clips, Tim explains how he came up with his plan for the Seaboard Central, and he introduces you to operations on the layout. Tim currently is producing a new how-to series on his channel. In this series, he shows you how he does things on his layout. Tim knows what he's talking about because he's a conductor for the Norfolk Southern. All right, let's go take a look at Tim's layout.
Hi, I'm Tim Garland, and welcome to the new Seaboard Central How-To series. In this series of videos, we'll be discussing weathering, scenery, operations, layout design, and even prototype information. So I hope you'll enjoy this new series on the Seaboard Central channel, and thanks for watching. Welcome to the new how-to series on the Seaboard Central channel. I often get a number of questions on my monthly layout updates about how I do certain things. So I thought it'd be good if I started creating a new set of how-to videos, and I hope to publish them in the middle of each month. These are questions like how I do scenery, how I weather my cars, or even how I operate the layout. So in this first video, it's going to be an introduction to operations on the Seaboard Central, and we're going to talk about how I came up with the Seaboard Central operating plan, and also how I came up with the Seaboard Central itself. Here's an overall view of the layout room, and currently it's going around the walls. This is the duck under / lift out section that I fully scenic this past year. And this room is about 11.5 feet wide by 22.5 feet long.
Now you've had a chance to see Tim's layout right here on Dispatch. So here's what I want you to do next. I want you to go over to his channel and check it out for yourself. I will put a link down below that will take you there. If you want your layout to look like a real railroad and operate like a railroad, then be sure to subscribe to Tim's channel and tell him Roy Smith sent you. Well, that just about concludes tonight's show, but don't go away just yet, because as promised, I have an add-on bonus for you at the end of this video. Before going to that add-on, remember, I normally upload 2 videos each week. Dispatch on Tuesday nights, in which I get to interact with you, and which you're watching right now, and layout updates on Saturday mornings, in which I show you what I'm doing on my layout. However, for the next few Saturdays, I will continue to show you some of the railroad and model railroad things I did during my recent trip to Pennsylvania. We will come back to the layout updates after that. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because I don't want you to miss any of the upcoming episodes. And one more thing to remember. Right now there are 166 other videos on this channel. Go to my videos page and check them out. I will put a link to the videos page down below.
Hey, where's that bonus you promised?
All right, calm down. Here it is. As you may already know, my layout is based on a real prototype, the Union Pacific Evanston Subdivision, which runs from Green River in southwestern Wyoming to Ogden in northeastern Utah. I have thoroughly enjoyed trying to capture the feel of the prototype railroad I am modeling, because it has allowed me to study the geography, history, and economy of that region, and it has allowed me to learn about the Union Pacific running through the region. Now, as you may recall, Sparky 107 gave me a Scale Trains Big Blow turbine during the Steamtown get-together in May. Well, I have been having tons of fun running this locomotive on my layout, and what's more, I have been having tons of fun learning about the prototype Big Blow. So let me take you on a short photographic journey as my Big Blow crosses the Evanston subdivision on my layout. The Union Pacific Railroad had long sought the biggest and most powerful locomotives, so it purchased and operated gas turbine electric locomotives from 1952 to 1970. Here you see one of them, number 26, which was built in 1961. It was the 26th of 30 such locomotives operated by the UP. These locomotives were powered by engines similar to jet engines, so they quickly earned the nickname Big Blow because of the noise they made. You often could hear them long before seeing them. The Union Pacific intended to use them to replace the famous big boy steam locomotives, which were about to be retired. Initially, the Big Blows pulled freights between Ogden, Utah and Green River, Wyoming. This is the UP's Evanston subdivision, which I model. Soon, though, they began running east to Laramie and then further east to Cheyenne and eventually as far east as Council Bluffs, Iowa. Soon, though, the Big Blows became too expensive to operate. Fuel economy was poor. The turbine consumed roughly twice as much fuel as regular diesel locomotives. Eventually, all but 2 of them were scrapped. Those 2 are preserved but are not operational. Number 18 was turned over to the Illinois Railway Museum in Union, Illinois, and number 26, this one, was retired in February 1970 and turned over to the Utah State Railroad Museum in Ogden, Utah. In fact, this is the real number 26 in Ogden. Neither number 18 nor 26 is operable, and there are no plans to restore either of them. So how can I justify running number 26 on my layout if it no longer runs on the prototype? I suppose I could say it's my railroad and I can run whatever I please on it. Or perhaps I could say that the UP has restored number 26, much like it did for the famous big boy steam locomotive number 4014, and then since it's been restored, I could run it at the head of excursion trains. That sounds better to me. Well, thanks again for joining me here on Dispatch tonight. Until next time, happy railroading. I'm Roy Smith, and I will see you again very soon.